The kingdom of Eldridge was known for its grand castle, tall towers, and shining walls that reflected the golden morning light. Inside those walls lived nobles, servants, guards, and the royal family. Among the many who once worked in the castle was a woman named Camilla. She had served Queen Helena for more than 10 years, helping her with daily duties and caring for her during her final illness. Camilla had a quiet heart and gentle hands. She was not from a rich family, but her loyalty made her respected by everyone who knew her. The queen trusted her deeply and often said that Camilla was more like a sister than a servant. When the queen passed away, Camilla's heart broke in silence. She had lost not only her position but also the person she loved like family. After the queen's death, the castle changed. King Rowan, the late queen's nephew, took the throne. He was young and proud, determined to rebuild the kingdom in his own way. But with his rule came strict orders. Many workers were removed from their duties. The royal household was reorganized, and people who had served the late queen were told to leave. Camilla was one of them. With no home and no income, Camilla moved to a small cottage near the southern wall of the capital with her little son, Leo. He was 7 years old, cheerful but thin from hunger. Every morning, Camilla went to the marketplace hoping to find cleaning work or sewing jobs. Some days she earned a few coins, but most days she came home empty-handed. She still wore the plain gray dress given by the queen many years ago, patched many times yet kept clean with care. One cold evening, as she returned from the market, Camilla sat by the small fire and watched Leo sleeping beside her. His cheeks were pale and his tiny hands were rough from the cold. Her heart ached. She thought of the warm halls of the castle, the smell of baked bread, the music during the queen's dinners. Everything had disappeared like smoke. The next morning she went to the old storage rooms near the castle's edge. She had permission to clean them once every few weeks for a small wage. The rooms were full of dust, broken furniture, and forgotten boxes. As she swept the floor, she noticed a wooden chest under a torn cloth. When she opened it, her breath stopped. Inside were some of the late queen's personal belongings. There was a silver brooch shaped like a bird, a silk scarf embroidered with golden flowers, a small hand mirror with a cracked edge, and a pair of soft gloves. Camilla touched each item with trembling hands. She remembered the queen wearing the scarf during her last winter, and giving her the gloves once when her hands were cold. These things carried memories, not just value. Camilla sat quietly beside the chest, her thoughts spinning. She knew the items were part of the royal treasury and should not be taken, but then she thought of Leo, who had not eaten a full meal in 2 days. She tried to fight the idea forming in her mind. Yet the longer she stared, the louder her hunger and worry grew. That night she took the silver brooch and the scarf, wrapping them in a piece of cloth. The next day she walked to the market with a pounding heart. She went to a merchant named Rolf, an older man who sold jewelry and fine cloth. She told him the items were gifts from an old noblewoman. Rolf looked at her clothes and doubted her words, but the items were beautiful, and he wanted them. He paid her a few gold coins and said nothing more. With that money, Camilla bought bread, vegetables, and a small bottle of medicine for Leo's cough. When she returned home, Leo smiled for the first time in weeks. They ate together, and for a short while, life felt peaceful again. Camilla promised herself she would never do such a thing again, but the peace did not last long. 2 days later, the royal treasury officer discovered that several small items were missing from the queen's collection. A search began quietly inside the castle. The merchant Rolf, not wanting trouble, showed the silver brooch to a noblewoman, claiming he had bought it from a poor maid. The noblewoman recognized the brooch at once. It had belonged to Queen Helena. The news spread fast. Within hours, the royal guards were given an order to find the thief. That evening, as the sun went down, heavy boots stopped outside Camilla's cottage. When she opened the door, she saw 2 guards in silver armor standing tall. Behind them stood Commander Darius, the captain of the royal guard. He was known for his discipline and loyalty to the king. Camilla's heart raced as Darius unrolled a scroll and read aloud. The king had learned that she sold items belonging to the late queen. She was accused of theft and betrayal of royal trust. The punishment was immediate exile from the kingdom. Camilla dropped to her knees, tears filling her eyes. She explained that she only took the items to feed her child. She begged for mercy, reminding them of her years of service to the queen. But the guards remained silent. Darius's face showed no emotion as he said, "The law does not bend even for those who once served the crown." He allowed her 1 hour to gather her things. Camilla packed a small bag with clothes, bread, and Leo's blanket. Leo clung to her side, asking why the guards were angry. Camilla could not answer. She only said they were going on a long journey. When the hour ended, Darius and his men escorted them through the narrow streets. People watched from their doors and windows, whispering among themselves. Some pitied her, others called her a thief. The sound of their words cut deeper than any sword. As they reached the great southern gate, the sky turned gray with clouds. The guards opened the gate and the cold wind blew across the path. Darius stepped forward and spoke for the last time. "By the command of King Rowan, you and your son are banished from the kingdom of Eldridge. You may never return." Camilla lifted her chin, her eyes red but proud. She took Leo's hand and stepped beyond the gate. The guards closed it behind her, the heavy sound echoing like thunder. They walked for hours, leaving the castle far behind. When night fell, Camilla built a small fire beside a tree and wrapped Leo in her cloak. He looked up at her with sleepy eyes and whispered, "Will we be all right, Mother?" She placed a hand on his head and smiled through her tears. "We will, my son. We have each other. That is enough." As the fire burned low, Camilla looked back at the distant glow of the castle towers. She knew the road ahead would be hard, but she also knew she could not give up. Somewhere beyond those hills, there had to be a place where they could start again. That night marked the end of her life as a servant and the beginning of her life as a survivor. The night was cold, and the forest around Camilla and Leo whispered with the sound of leaves and distant wolves. Camilla sat near the small fire she had made with dry sticks. She held Leo close to keep him warm. The wind carried the smell of rain, and the stars were slowly disappearing behind dark clouds. By morning, the fire had gone out, and the air was damp. Camilla woke up with stiff arms and tired eyes. Leo was still sleeping beside her, his head resting on her lap. She brushed the dust from his hair and stood up quietly. Her heart felt heavy, but she reminded herself that she could not stop. She had to keep moving if she wanted her son to live. They followed a narrow dirt path that led away from the kingdom. The ground was uneven and the trees grew thicker around them. Leo tried to walk fast, but his small feet often stumbled. Each time he fell, Camilla helped him up and smiled to give him courage. By noon, they reached a small river. The water was clear and cold. Camilla filled a cup and gave it to Leo. They ate a piece of bread from their bag sitting on a large rock by the water. It was a quiet moment, almost peaceful, until they heard the sound of hooves coming from behind the trees. Camilla's heart jumped. She quickly pulled Leo close and watched the path. Soon a man on a brown horse appeared. He wore simple clothes, not the uniform of a guard. His face was rough from sun and travel, but his eyes were calm. He stopped when he saw them. "Are you lost?" he asked. Camilla hesitated before answering. "We are traveling, just looking for a village where we can rest." The man looked at her clothes and the small bag she carried. "You came from the capital, did you not? I can tell by the way you speak." Camilla's hands tightened on Leo's shoulder. "Yes, we left the city." The man nodded slowly. "I am Thomas. I trade goods between towns. The nearest village is a half-day's walk from here. You can come with me if you wish. It is safer to travel together." Camilla studied his face for a moment. There was no sign of cruelty or trickery. She thanked him and agreed to follow. Thomas rode his horse slowly beside them, talking only when needed. He told them about his travels, the villages he had seen, and how the kingdom had changed under the new king. As the sun began to set, they reached a small village surrounded by wooden fences. Smoke rose from chimneys and the smell of food filled the air. Camilla had not smelled such warmth in many days. Thomas led them to an inn run by an old woman named Mira. She welcomed them kindly when Thomas explained that Camilla and her son needed a place to rest. Inside, the inn was small but clean. The walls were made of stone and a fire burned in the corner. Mira served them soup and bread. Leo ate quietly but quickly, his eyes shining again. Camilla thanked Mira many times. That night, when Leo slept, Camilla sat by the fire. Thomas joined her with a cup of tea. "You do not look like a traveler," he said gently. "You look like someone who once belonged to something greater." Camilla stayed silent for a while before answering. "I once served the queen, but now I serve only my son." Thomas nodded with respect. He did not ask more. Before leaving in the morning, he gave her a few coins and said, "Use this for food. There is kindness left in the world, even when it hides." Camilla thanked him again, her eyes full of tears. The days that followed were not easy. She tried to work at the inn by washing dishes and cleaning rooms in exchange for food. Mira liked her and treated her with care, but some villagers whispered behind her back. They said she looked like a woman who had once lived in the castle. Rumors spread quickly, and soon one of the travelers passing through recognized her. A week later, a messenger on horseback arrived at the village square. He carried a royal banner. The people gathered around him. He read a notice from the king himself. It said that anyone who gave shelter to Camilla or her son would be punished. The message called her a thief and a liar who had betrayed the crown. Camilla stood in the crowd, frozen with fear. Mira looked at her with worry and whispered, "You must leave before nightfall. They will come here soon." Camilla's heart broke again. She packed her small bag, took Leo's hand, and thanked Mira for her kindness. The old woman hugged her tightly and slipped 2 apples into her pocket. "For the boy," she said softly. They left the village quietly before sunset. The path ahead was long and empty. Leo was tired, but he did not complain. He trusted his mother completely. By the 3rd night, rain began to fall. They took shelter under an old barn near the edge of a farm. The barn smelled of hay and damp wood. Camilla found an old blanket and covered Leo with it. She sat beside him, watching the rain through the broken roof. For a moment, she felt completely alone. The world that had once welcomed her now chased her away. She thought of Queen Helena, the kind woman who had once smiled at her and said, "A servant's heart can be more noble than a crown." Those words gave her a small spark of hope. In the morning, she heard footsteps outside the barn. A young farmer stood at the door with a lantern. His name was Aaron. He looked at her with surprise. "You should not be here. The guards are looking for a woman and a boy." Camilla stood up slowly. "We will leave. I did not mean to cause trouble." But Aaron shook his head. "You can stay for a while. My mother always said that kindness is worth more than gold." He brought them warm milk and bread. Leo smiled as he ate, and Camilla felt tears in her eyes again. She thanked Aaron deeply. For the next few days, she helped him on the farm, cleaning the shed and milking cows. For the first time since exile, she felt almost safe. But safety never lasted long. One afternoon, as Aaron and Camilla worked near the field, a group of riders appeared on the road. They carried the royal banner and wore silver armor. Camilla recognized one of them immediately. It was Commander Darius. Her hands shook as she ran to the barn and called Leo. Aaron looked confused, but when he saw the guards, he understood. He whispered, "Take the back path through the woods. Go now." Camilla hugged him quickly and ran with Leo into the forest. The sound of hooves grew louder behind them. Branches scratched her arms and mud covered her shoes, but she did not stop. Leo stumbled and she lifted him into her arms, pushing forward with every bit of strength she had. At last they reached a small river and crossed it barefoot. On the other side, Camilla hid behind thick bushes, breathing hard. The guards stopped on the riverbank, shouting orders, but they did not cross. Camilla held Leo close, her heart pounding. They had escaped once more, but she knew the danger was not over. Somewhere deep inside her, a new feeling began to grow. Not fear, but determination. If the royal guards wanted to chase her forever, she would not run in weakness anymore. She would find a way to clear her name, not just for herself, but for Leo and for the memory of Queen Helena, who had once believed in her goodness. As the night fell again, Camilla looked up at the sky through the branches and whispered to herself, "The truth will find its voice." The forest stretched for miles, filled with tall trees, soft ground, and the sound of running water. After escaping the royal guards, Camilla and Leo walked for hours before finding a place to rest. They stopped near a quiet stream and built a small shelter with branches and leaves. The night air was cool and the sound of the flowing water helped calm Leo's fear. When morning came, sunlight filtered through the trees. Camilla woke to the sound of birds and looked at her son, who was still sleeping. His face was peaceful, though his clothes were worn and dirty. She smiled gently, brushing his hair aside. For a moment, she forgot their troubles. But the memory of the royal guards returned quickly. She knew they would not stop searching for her. The king's pride would not allow a former servant accused of theft to live freely. She needed to find a place where they could hide far from the king's eyes. After a small meal of bread and berries, Camilla took Leo's hand, and they began walking deeper into the forest. The path was rough, but she kept going, guided by hope and her motherly strength. Around midday, they reached a wide meadow. In the distance, smoke rose from a chimney. Leo pointed and said softly, "Mother, maybe someone lives there." Camilla followed his gaze and saw a small cottage near a hill. She felt both fear and curiosity. They needed shelter, but she could not risk meeting someone unkind or loyal to the crown. Still, she decided to try. When they reached the cottage, an old man stood outside cutting wood. He had a long beard and tired eyes, but a calm presence. He looked up as they approached. "You look lost," he said kindly. Camilla bowed her head. "We have been traveling for many days. My son is hungry, and we need a place to rest for a night." The old man studied them for a moment before nodding. "My name is Bernard. You may stay if you promise no trouble." Camilla thanked him with relief. Inside, the cottage was small but warm. Bernard gave them soup made of potatoes and herbs. As they ate, he sat near the fire and spoke in a gentle voice. "Many wanderers pass through this forest. Some run from hunger, some from the law. I do not ask questions, but I see truth in tired eyes." Camilla froze for a moment, but then said honestly, "I once worked in the royal castle. I did something wrong out of desperation, and now my son and I are chased." Bernard's eyes narrowed slightly, but there was no anger in them. "Sometimes people in high places forget mercy. The forest does not judge. You are safe here for now." Those words gave Camilla comfort she had not felt in weeks. Days turned into a week, and life in the forest became calmer. Camilla helped Bernard with cleaning and cooking, while Leo collected firewood and played with his wooden toys. For a brief time, they lived in peace. One afternoon, while cleaning the old storage room behind the cottage, Camilla found a wooden chest covered in dust. Inside were books, maps, and old letters. Most of the papers were useless, but one letter caught her attention. It was sealed with the mark of Queen Helena. Camilla's hands trembled as she opened it carefully. The letter was written in the Queen's own handwriting. It spoke of a hidden truth within the royal court. The Queen wrote about a stolen fund meant for the people of the kingdom. She had discovered that several nobles, including the king's advisor, Lord Marcel, had secretly taken the money before her death. The Queen had planned to reveal the truth to the council, but she fell ill before she could act. Camilla's heart raced as she read the letter. If this message reached the king or the people, it could change everything. It would prove that others were guilty of stealing, not her. The Queen's signature and royal seal made it undeniable evidence. Bernard came into the room and saw the letter in her hand. "Where did you find that?" he asked. "In this chest," she answered. "It belonged to the Queen. It could clear my name." Bernard looked thoughtful. "If that is true, you must protect it. But be careful. Those who fear the truth will do anything to hide it." That night, Camilla could not sleep. She kept the letter hidden under her blanket, her mind full of thoughts. She now had something powerful, something that could bring justice. But she also knew that if anyone found out she had it, she would be hunted even harder. The next morning, Bernard helped her make a plan. "There is an old monastery beyond the eastern hills," he said. "The monks there keep records and guard old writings. If you reach them, they will keep the letter safe and maybe help you send word to someone honest in the royal court." Camilla agreed. She thanked Bernard deeply for his kindness and prepared to leave. Before she went, Bernard gave her a small wooden charm carved in the shape of a dove. "For protection," he said. Camilla placed it around Leo's neck and smiled. "We will never forget you," she said softly. They left the cottage early in the morning. The journey ahead was long, but Camilla felt stronger than before. She carried the Queen's letter close to her heart, knowing it was more than just paper. It was truth, and truth had power. As they crossed the hills, the weather began to change. Dark clouds gathered and thunder rolled in the distance. By evening, heavy rain fell. They took shelter in an abandoned mill beside the road. Camilla started a small fire and held the letter close to keep it dry. When the rain stopped, she heard faint voices outside. Her heart jumped. She peered through a crack in the wall and saw two riders on horses wearing the royal crest. She recognized one of them, Commander Darius. He was speaking to another guard. The king ordered that we search every village and forest. The woman and her child must not be allowed to reach the eastern lands. Camilla froze. She held Leo's hand tightly and waited for the riders to move away. After a few minutes, the sound of hooves faded into the distance. Leo looked up at her with wide eyes. "Mother, are they looking for us again?" Camilla nodded. "Yes, but we are smarter this time." They left the mill quietly before sunrise and walked toward the eastern hills. The land became rocky and steep. Camilla's feet ached, and Leo was tired, but they did not stop. At the top of the hill, they could see the valley below. In the far distance, a tall tower rose above the trees. Bernard had said that was where the monastery stood. They began their descent, unaware that someone was watching from behind the rocks. It was one of Darius's scouts who quickly turned his horse and rode off toward the capital to report what he had seen. By the time Camilla and Leo reached the valley, the air had grown colder. They crossed a narrow bridge made of old wood and reached a quiet path lined with white stones. Birds sang in the trees and the sound of bells echoed faintly from the monastery ahead. For the first time in many weeks, Camilla felt a spark of hope. She looked down at Leo and said, "We are close, my son. Soon, the truth will be safe." But deep inside, she knew danger was still near. Commander Darius was not the kind of man who gave up easily. The Queen's letter might save her, but it could also bring great trouble if it fell into the wrong hands. As they approached the monastery gates, the heavy doors slowly opened. A tall monk in a brown robe stepped out holding a lantern. "Welcome, travelers," he said kindly. "What brings you to our humble home?" Camilla bowed her head and replied, "I come seeking shelter and truth." The monk smiled gently. "Then you have come to the right place." The gates closed behind them, marking the start of a new chapter in their journey, one filled with both hope and hidden danger. The monastery stood like a quiet guardian at the edge of the valley. Its walls were made of gray stone covered with green vines, and tall trees surrounded it on all sides. Bells rang softly from the tower as the monks walked through the courtyard, carrying baskets of herbs and books. The place felt peaceful, far from the noise of the world. Camilla and Leo followed the tall monk who had greeted them. His name was Brother Alden. His steps were slow, and his voice calm. "You and your child will be safe here," he said. "The world outside cannot reach this valley easily. Many travelers come here seeking peace." Camilla nodded with gratitude. "We are thankful, brother. We only ask for a little time to rest." Alden smiled. "Rest as long as you need. The lord of this house asks nothing but honesty." They were given a small room with 2 beds and a window facing the garden. Leo ran to the window and smiled at the sight of the birds and flowers. Camilla sat on the bed, her hand still holding the small bag that hid the Queen's letter. She could finally breathe without fear, at least for a moment. Later that evening, Alden invited her to the dining hall. Long wooden tables were filled with bowls of soup, bread, and fruits. The monks ate quietly, speaking only in gentle voices. Camilla felt a strange sense of peace, something she had not known since leaving the castle. After the meal, Alden walked with her in the courtyard. The moon was bright and the air was cool. "You carry a heavy secret," he said softly. "You do not need to tell me, but secrets often become burdens when kept too long." Camilla hesitated, then decided to trust him. "I was once a servant to Queen Helena. I was exiled after being accused of selling her belongings. But I found something that proves the truth. The Queen wrote a letter before she died. It speaks of a great wrongdoing inside the court." Alden stopped walking. His calm face became serious. "If what you say is true, that letter must be protected carefully. There are people who would destroy it to hide their guilt." I know, Camilla said. That is why I came here. I hoped your monastery could keep it safe. Alden looked at her with understanding. We guard many truths here, hidden from the world. You may leave the letter with us, and we will protect it. But if you wish to clear your name, you will have to return to the capital one day. The truth can only free you if it is seen. Camilla nodded slowly. I will do what I must, but not now. My son needs safety first. The monk agreed. Then rest here until the time comes. Days turned into weeks. Camilla helped in the monastery garden, growing herbs and vegetables. Leo played with the children of nearby villages who came to study under the monks. The peace of the place slowly healed her heart. She began to smile again, and Leo's laughter filled the halls. But peace rarely lasts forever. One afternoon, while Camilla was gathering herbs near the edge of the forest, she saw a rider far down the road. He was wearing silver armor. Her heart stopped when she recognized the mark on his cloak, the royal crest. She quickly ran back to the monastery and told Alden. The monk looked grave. The king's men have found the valley. They must have followed some clue. We will hide you in the old library beneath the tower. Camilla and Leo were taken to a secret room under the floor of the library. It was filled with old scrolls and dust-covered shelves. A narrow tunnel led out toward the forest, a path known only to the monks. Alden gave her a small bag of food and said quietly, If they come searching, stay hidden. If they try to take you, use the tunnel and go east. There is another village 2 days away, where you might find safety. Camilla thanked him, tears in her eyes. She took Leo's hand and hid among the shadows. Soon after, the sound of horses and armor filled the courtyard. Commander Darius entered through the main gate with 6 guards. His sharp eyes scanned the area. By the order of King Rowan, we are searching for a woman named Camilla and her son. They are traitors to the crown. Brother Alden greeted him calmly. You are welcome in the House of Peace, Commander, but you will find no traitors here. Darius narrowed his eyes. Peace cannot hide criminals. We will search every room. The guards moved through the monastery, opening doors and looking behind walls. Camilla could hear their boots above her head. Leo held her arm tightly, trying not to make a sound. The candle beside them flickered as voices grew louder. One of the guards lifted a trapdoor in the corner of the library. He looked down into the darkness but saw only books and dust. The monks had placed heavy chests in front of the entrance to block the view. After a moment, the guard turned away. Finally, Darius stepped into the library himself. His eyes searched the room, and for a moment Camilla thought he could sense her presence. He looked at the shelves, touched the wood, and then said coldly, If I find that the monks are hiding her, I will return with the king's full force. Brother Alden bowed slightly. Truth cannot be silenced by threats, Commander. Darius said nothing more and left. The sound of hooves faded as the guards rode away. When the monastery grew quiet again, Alden opened the trapdoor and helped Camilla out. She was shaking, her face pale. They were so close, she whispered. Alden nodded. You cannot stay here now. They will return. Take the letter and go before dawn. Follow the tunnel to the eastern woods. There is a man named Elias who lives near the river. He once served the queen as an advisor but was forced into hiding after her death. He may help you. That night, Camilla packed their things again. She wrapped the queen's letter in cloth and placed it safely in her bag. Before leaving, she went to the chapel and knelt before the small altar. She prayed for strength, not only for herself but for her son, and for the truth she carried. Brother Alden met her at the tunnel entrance. The world will not always be kind, but truth has its own way of shining through darkness, he said. Camilla smiled faintly. Thank you for everything, brother. I will not forget your kindness. Leo hugged the monk goodbye, then followed his mother into the dark tunnel. The air was cold and damp, but they walked with steady steps. The tunnel led them out to a hill covered in tall grass. From there, they could see the valley below, and the faint glow of the monastery's lights fading behind them. They walked through the night until they reached the forest again. The moonlight guided their way. Camilla carried Leo on her back when he grew tired. Her body ached, but her heart was strong. By dawn, they reached the river Bernard had mentioned. The water shone like silver in the sunlight. Across the river stood a small wooden house surrounded by fruit trees. Smoke rose from the chimney. Camilla called out, and a man appeared at the door. He was tall with gray hair and sharp eyes. "Are you Elias?" she asked. The man studied her for a moment before nodding. "I am. And you must be the woman Brother Alden wrote about. Come inside, both of you. You have come a long way." Camilla felt a wave of relief. Inside, the house was filled with books, scrolls, and maps. Elias listened carefully as she told him everything: her exile, her escape, and the Queen's hidden letter. When she showed him the letter, his eyes widened. "This is real," he said. The Queen spoke of these matters before she died. Lord Marcel and the council took her silence as their victory. "If the king sees this letter, the truth will shake his throne." Camilla looked at him with hope. "Then we must show it to him." Elias thought for a long time before replying. "The truth must be delivered wisely. We need proof and witnesses. We cannot walk into the palace with only one paper. But perhaps fate has chosen you to bring justice back to Eldridge." That night, as Leo slept beside the fire, Camilla sat with Elias and planned the steps ahead. For the first time, she was not just running. She was preparing to fight back, not with swords, but with truth. The Queen's words would speak again, and the world would finally know who the true thieves were. Morning light entered the small house near the river. Camilla woke early and watched her son Leo sleeping peacefully beside the fireplace. His small hands held the corner of the blanket, his face calm after many restless nights. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to breathe without fear, but deep inside she knew her journey was not over. Elias was already awake. He sat at a wooden table, reading old scrolls and letters. When Camilla joined him, he looked up with serious eyes. "I have spent the night thinking about your story," he said. "The Queen's letter is a strong piece of truth, but it will not be enough to convince the king alone. We must gather more proof," Camilla nodded. "Tell me what I must do." Elias unrolled a map of the royal capital. Before her death, Queen Helena often visited the lower archives of the castle. Only a few trusted guards were allowed there. I believe she kept records of her personal dealings. If we can find them, they might show that Lord Marcel and his men took her jewels and sold them secretly. Camilla looked at the map carefully. "How can we reach the castle?" "The guards know my face." "You will not go alone," Elias replied. "I have a friend inside the city who owes his life to the Queen. His name is Rowan Hale. He works as a blacksmith near the old gate. He can help you enter quietly." That day, Elias prepared everything for their journey. He gave Camilla a simple cloak and some coins. He also handed her a small ring made of silver. "This belonged to the Queen," he said. "If you meet someone who truly served her, show this ring. They will know you speak the truth." As evening fell, Camilla and Leo said goodbye to Elias. "You have given us hope," she said. Elias smiled kindly. "Hope is only the first step, my dear. The rest will depend on your courage." They traveled under the stars, moving through forests and quiet paths. 2 days later, the walls of the capital appeared in the distance. The city looked grand and bright, with banners waving in the wind and guards standing at every gate. Camilla pulled her cloak tighter around her face and walked toward the old gate where the blacksmith shop stood. Rowan Hale was a broad-shouldered man with kind eyes and hands marked by work. When he saw Camilla, he looked cautious at first. "What brings you here, stranger?" he asked. Camilla showed him the silver ring. The blacksmith's eyes widened. "Where did you get this?" "It was the Queen's," she said quietly. "I was her servant. I have proof of her last words and need help to reach the castle." Rowan looked around to be sure no one was listening. Then he whispered, "Come inside quickly." He closed the door and led them to a small room at the back. "The Queen was a good woman," he said. "She once helped my family when my brother was sick. I would do anything for her memory. Tell me what you need." Camilla explained everything, showing him the letter. Rowan read it slowly, his hands shaking slightly. "This could change everything," he said. "But you must be careful. Lord Marcel now controls most of the council. He will not allow this truth to reach the king easily." Rowan agreed to help them enter the castle through the old servant tunnels beneath the forge. Those tunnels had been built generations ago for emergencies, and few remembered them now. The next night, under the cover of darkness, Camilla and Leo followed Rowan through a narrow stone passage that led under the castle walls. The air was cold and damp. They walked carefully, their footsteps echoing softly. After nearly an hour, they reached a small iron gate. Rowan opened it with an old key and pointed ahead. "This leads to the lower archives," he whispered. "Be quick, and may the Queen's spirit protect you." Camilla thanked him and entered the tunnel with Leo. Inside, torches burned along the walls. The room was filled with shelves of scrolls and books. Dust floated in the air. She began searching through the records, her fingers trembling with hope. After some time, she found a chest with the royal mark. Inside were ledgers signed by Lord Marcel himself. The pages showed that jewels had been removed from the royal treasury weeks before the Queen's death, but the gold earned from them never appeared in the kingdom's account. "This is it," she whispered. "This will prove everything." Just then, the sound of footsteps echoed behind them. Camilla froze. From the shadows stepped Commander Darius, the same royal guard who had hunted her before. His sword gleamed under the torchlight. "I knew I would find you here," he said coldly. "You could have hidden anywhere, but you came back to the palace. How brave and foolish." Camilla stood tall, clutching the Queen's letter and the ledgers. "You can take me, but the truth will not die. The Queen's own words will reach the king." Darius hesitated. For a moment his face softened. "You think I do not know the truth?" he said quietly. "I served the Queen for 10 years, but speaking against the council means death. You should have stayed hidden." Camilla looked into his eyes and said firmly, "If you truly served the Queen, then help her now. She trusted you once. Do not betray her memory." There was silence. The guard's jaw tightened and his grip on the sword loosened. Finally he sighed. "Follow me. I will take you to the king myself. But if anyone learns I helped you, I will pay with my life." Camilla nodded. "Then we will not forget your courage." Darius led them through secret halls until they reached the royal chamber. The king sat on his throne surrounded by advisors. His face was tired, his eyes heavy with worry. When Darius entered, he bowed deeply. "Your Majesty, forgive my intrusion. I have brought before you a woman who claims to hold the last letter of the late Queen." The court murmured in surprise. Camilla stepped forward, holding the letter and the ledgers. The king looked at her with suspicion. "You are the woman accused of betrayal," he said. "Why should I listen to you?" Camilla took a deep breath. "Because I served your queen faithfully and I carry her final words. She trusted me to guard them when she knew she was in danger." She handed him the letter. The king read silently, his expression changing with every line. When he finished, his hands trembled slightly. "These are indeed her words," he said in a low voice. "She speaks of Lord Marcel and the theft of her treasures." The hall grew tense. Lord Marcel stepped forward quickly. "Lies," he shouted. "That woman forged those words. She was caught stealing from the Queen herself." Camilla opened the ledger. "Then explain these," she said. "Your signature appears here. Jewels were removed, but no record of the gold exists. The Queen wrote of this the night before she died." The king called for his guards. "Bring me the treasurer," he commanded. When the treasurer arrived and saw the ledgers, his face turned pale. Under pressure, he confessed the truth. Lord Marcel and several council members had taken the Queen's jewels and sold them secretly, blaming Camilla to cover their crime. The king rose from his throne. His voice echoed through the hall. "You have betrayed both the crown and the memory of our Queen. You are hereby stripped of your titles and will face judgment for your crimes." The guards seized Lord Marcel and his men. Camilla stood still, her heart racing. For the first time, she felt the heavy weight of injustice lift from her shoulders. The king looked at her again. "You have suffered for the truth, yet you did not give up. You will be honored for your loyalty. Your exile is lifted, and you shall receive the place you once lost." Tears filled her eyes. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I only wished for the Queen's name to be cleared." Leo ran to her and hugged her tightly. The king smiled gently. "Your son will grow in a kingdom where truth stands above power," he said. That evening, the city bells rang to announce the fall of the false council and the restoration of justice. The Queen's name was spoken once again with honor. Camilla and Leo were given a home near the royal gardens, and Elias was invited to serve as royal advisor once more. Commander Darius, though he chose to leave the court, was remembered as a man who dared to do what was right. Every year, on the day of Queen Helena's passing, the king laid white lilies at her statue. Beside him stood Camilla and her son, no longer outcasts but guardians of the truth that once saved the crown. And so the story of a servant's courage became a legend in the kingdom of Eldridge, reminding everyone that no lie, no matter how powerful, could outlast the strength of an honest heart.